Have you ever wondered why people aren't taking any action on your website? No? Then I guess you don't own an e-commerce store, because everyone that owns an e-commerce brand, they wonder why people aren't buying and what is blocking them from buying. Well, there's actually a model that helps you identify why people aren't taking action and what needs to be in place or what you need to work on in order for them to perform an action and therefore, of course, to make people buy. Now I'm going to show you how this model works. And why am I going to do that? Well, for the last 8 years, I've been working with a lot of e-commerce brands in order to scale their business, to grow their store. And we've generated them a lot of additional revenue. And what has really helped is this particular model to identify why people are not taking an action, because 3 things have to be in place. It's motivation, ability, and prompts. And I'm going to walk you through today in this video how that looks like and what you can do in order to motivate your people to actually place an order or to make them able to do so. So let's dive in. The model that I'm going to show you today is called the Fogg behavior model, and it actually looks like this. So basically, you need 3 things in order for people to take action. They need to be motivated, they need to be able to do so, and they need to be also prompts in order for them to actually be nudged to take an action. So basically behavior is motivation, ability, and prompts. When those align, behavior will happen. And there's also an action line, let me draw that here, where you see when people will take action. Now, how does this work? Now, basically your motivation can either be high or it can be low. And something can be hard to do or something can be very easy to do. And here is where the action line is, meaning that if people are here, they are taking an action, they're performing an action. Everything here, nothing happens, and here they actually will perform an action. And that's why are the prompts here. The prompts are, for example, your call to action or nudges that you do in order for people to take action. They fail here and they succeed here. So this is how the model looks. Let me explain to you briefly how it all ties together. And let me also give you 2 examples to illustrate this. Now, for example, let's say you are on Facebook, right? And you're scrolling through your feed and you see an advert of Happy Socks. You think, hey, these socks are looking quite funny and they look quite cool. Let me check them out. Now, your motivation to actually buy has been low because you were not in a purchase decision phase. You were just like scrolling, you were like checking what your friends were doing. So your motivation to actually buy is quite low. But socks are pretty easy to understand. And if the website is also easy to use, like you go on the landing page, it just shows the product, it shows that people are happy with it. It's, you know, there are socks. Maybe you want to know if they're 100% cotton or not, but otherwise there is not much that you really need to know. And also if the pricing is all clear and makes sense, then you are in low motivation and something is easy to do. So your action line is probably somewhere here. So you're going to probably perform an action. If there's a good call to action, maybe there's even some urgency that, you know, increases the motivation a little bit. Maybe there's a limited edition that can all increase the motivation, then you're definitely going to buy. Now, on the other hand, if you need a new energy meter and you have no idea what it actually is, or, well, you know what it is, but you don't really know how to install it, what makes a good energy meter, and there are these smart ones now that you can use with Wi-Fi and you can see all the ins and outs of your usage and stuff like that. Like, you don't have a lot of ideas or information about what it is and what it does and how to go about it. So basically, you know, it's pretty hard for you, but your current one is broken and you really need a new one. So your motivation is pretty high. What happens then? Okay, it might be very difficult to understand the topic for you. For someone else, it might be easy, but for you, it's hard. But your motivation is high because you need a new one and you need it now. So that means that you are here and you're also likely to take action if, you know, the website is not making it too hard and that you'll land here in order to take action. If they make it a little bit easy, at least for you to decide, you know, if the website does a good job in also making it easy, then you, of course, you go more in that direction and you're definitely going to buy. But you need to make sure that if you sell a bit of a complex product, it's hard to understand, that the motivation for people to actually do so is high. Now, if on the other hand, you go on that website and you check for electricity meters and you like, it's just so confusing. You see like 25 different options. The prices all go like all over the place and you have no idea what's good and what's bad. Then it's going to be very hard and actually your motivation can also start to drop on that website itself. And so you're not going to perform an action. So a call to action or an urgency or a promotion is not really going to help. Those prompts are not going to help because it's just too hard and your motivation is also dropping for that website that you're not going to buy. So this is how this model technically works. So this means, of course, that if your website does a good job at motivating people, if you have great copy, if you have engaging copy or fun or very clear copy, and you have a lot of social proof and people are happy with it, and you actually can see the improvement that people are having, or like how it makes their life better, that motivation is also just going to increase. And then it doesn't really matter where people are in this spectrum. Of course, it will matter, but like if you are able to increase that motivation, then you are in a good spot. But if you have like a hard product to understand, or your website is a bit complex because you are just selling something that needs a little bit of navigation, like let's say spare parts, like, it can be a bit complex to find that spare part that you need because you're not selling 1 or 2 or 3 spare parts, you're selling probably 10,000 spare parts. So it might be a bit hard to navigate, it might be a bit more difficult for people to realize what is the right spare parts for them. Then, it's really important to make it easy for people to find their product, making sure that you properly tag your products, that the search engine works really well, that you show how compatible or with what products your spare parts are compatible with, so that people don't have a hard time figuring out what to do and what to do next. So this really helps you to decide for your store, is my website hard or easy to use or to understand, and is my product easy or hard to understand? And what can I do to motivate people or to increase that motivation? Because you cannot assume that people are always here. Maybe you go viral with something funny and the motivation will be high. You will also see that more people are buying. That's because the motivation is high. That's why, when things are viral, these sales are boosting. And of course, if you have some bad press, the motivation will be much lower, and it's going to be very difficult for people to actually place an order. Now, what can you do to increase that motivation? And what can you do to increase that ability to make it easier for people to take the next action? And what are certain prompts that you can apply in order for them to take action? Now, the prompts I'm going to discuss later, because they also won't matter if the motivation and the ability are not in place. But if they are in place, the prompts can help in order for people to actually take that action and buy. So let's talk about motivation first. If you can identify what people want, what makes them tick, then you can use that also in your copywriting. You can create engaging copy. If you actually are tackling the objections that people have, if you are removing the fear, if you also are focusing on the goal that they want to achieve. Let's say it's a weight loss product and you really can describe the issues that they have, and you can present the ideal outcome, their motivation will be very high. Now, if you sell products where you're like, well, I don't really, I can't really use product descriptions to boost that motivation, then you can maybe use your images. If you sell furniture, if you have really good looking furniture with a good background, if you have very detailed close-up of the product, if you can, for example, show some photos of people using it in context, like say a couch, and people are very relaxed and chill in that couch, that increase their motivation. People are like, yeah, that's what I want. After a long day, I want to finally chill on that couch. Like, those visuals can create a state where people feel like that's what I want, and that can really motivate them also to buy. Like, it looks really cool, it looks really neat, and they want to have it in their house, so that also their house will get that nice boost, and they will feel like, yeah, that's really a great product for in my house, and I want to have it right now. Now, you can also make the experience fun. Now, if you're in a lawyer practice for divorces, then maybe you should not use a lot of humor on your website. But if it is good for your audience, if you're selling products where you can maybe create a fun experience on the site, if people buying a backpack, for example, why should not you use not necessarily jokes, but you can make the experience fun, or you can make it lighthearted, so people are in a good mood and their motivation also increase because they are projecting their positive attitude on your product and your brand. Then it also will help people to convert. And what's very powerful is before and after as well. If you can show, hey, this is what the person looked before, or this is what their situation was before, and this is what it is now after using our product, that is really motivating because people want to aspire that goal as well. And you can say, okay, but that's maybe for weight loss or with supplements or something like that. But you also have websites that, for example, sell furniture, and when they show, for example, the living room before and after, and then you can see how nice that product looks or that couch looks in the living living room. So you can use that before and after in multiple ways. And that is really helpful for increasing motivation, because it actually shows people the after state that they want to achieve. Now, whereas motivation is often discussed and there are a lot of examples of how you can increase motivation, ability is usually not discussed as much, but it is just as important as motivation. And what can you do to increase ability? Like we all know the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? So that's also something that you can do for your website. What can you do to simplify it? And even if you're selling like an easy to understand product like socks, you can still look at what can you do to make it even easier. For example, returning customers, maybe they don't have to fill out the entire checkout. Maybe it's already pre-filled because you already have their details, so it is easier for them to place the order. Or you can show products that are similar like the ones that they had bought, so it's already easier for them to find a product that they like. But this is extremely helpful for products that are a bit more complex. Like simplify the navigation, make sure that your search function is really good, that you have appropriate tags for all your products so that people can actually search for them and get the right results. But also, if they open a menu and they see a lot of categories, a lot of subcategories, it can be very confusing for them and it can make it very difficult. Then you need to promote that search a bit more so that people can get quickly to the chase. And it can also be very simple. For example, on the homepage, you can already show your bestsellers or your best-selling categories so that people don't have to look for them. They can already see them directly and they can quickly navigate to where they need to go. It just simplifies it. It doesn't have to be something super complex that you simplify, but if you can make every little aspect a little bit simpler, then you're moving them across that line from hard to easy, and every inch that you move up is going to be very helpful. So make the navigation simple. Also, for example, in the checkout, remove fields that are not really relevant, like birthday, for example, and make sure that you only ask what is necessary. Autofill the fields that you can autofill. Don't make very complex call to action. Just make it add to cart if it's something that you add to the cart. Don't make it like start your journey here. Like that is all just a bit more complex. Make it very easy and smooth to understand. And see, okay, this is my product. It is maybe difficult, but what can I do to simplify it? And if you're afraid that it'll make you look less professional because you say, okay, if I'm going to use simple words, then people might think that we are not the experts. Well, what you can do, then lead with a simple line, and then below it as a subline, you can then use that complex text. Because the thing is, like, your benefits should be easy to see, easy to identify. And if certain ingredients, for example, or certain material actually helps you create that result, like if it's shoes and they are like super comfortable and you have a specific material that makes it so that it's super comfortable and durable, for example, then you don't necessarily have to mention that complex material in the beginning, but you can say that they are very lightweight, durable shoes or very soft shoes, like you're walking on clouds. And then below it, you can explain why that is. But lead with the easy part that's easy to understand so that people already know, okay, this is what it does. And then, okay, this is why it does it. I don't know what it is, but okay, it sounds very credible. And they can always Google it if they really want to know. And the final tip that I want to give you is to use a quiz if you're selling a complex product. Drill it down to, okay, what can we ask the customer in order to help them find what they need? For example, if you're selling supplements and people have a certain issue and they might not know if they need A or B, if you have a quiz and you ask them about the symptoms, what they want to achieve, then you can recommend the right supplement. That will make something that is more difficult easier for them because you're removing that doubt, you're helping them in finding the right product. So don't use these quizzes. Well, you can use them to get email addresses, but actually give value and don't just send it to the email address and they will have to go through a lot of hoops, like the ability lowers in order for them to buy. You show it directly on the page so that the ability is high and the motivation also stays high, and then they can actually place that order. So I've given you some examples of how you can increase motivation and how you can increase ability, but what are certain prompts that you can use in order for people to actually take action? Now just remember that if your motivation and your ability are both on the wrong side of the scale, people are not going to take action what kind of prompt you're using. It doesn't really matter. If it's too hard for people to understand, if they're not motivated enough, they are not going to take action. So you need to make sure that they are on the action line or above. And then an easy add to cart button can already be enough, especially if they are like high in motivation and it's also easy to understand. And otherwise, you can also use some urgency or scarcity in order to trigger people to take that action. If there's a low stock, then people are more prompted to take action. Or if something is available for a limited of time, then they're also more prompted to take action. And the whole idea of prompts also helps you understand why it is, for example, important if you have a long landing page that you mention that call to action or that you show that call to action a couple of times. Because if you are working on increasing that motivation or that ability, and you show the prompt at the right time, people are going to take action. And if you're not showing them the prompt, then there might be no action. So also show the call to action in an easy to spot place. Repeat it if you have a very long page, or make it sticky. If that works for you, it's best to test it, by the way. And then you trigger the people to take action. Now, to summarize, if people are not buying from your site, if you're wondering why they're not taking action, their motivation might be low. It might be hard to understand your product or to use your website, or you're not providing them enough triggers, enough prompts in order to take action. So here you can see what you need to work on. Do you need to increase the motivation? Do you need to increase the ability? Or do you need to provide them some more prompts? And are you also presenting those prompts at the right time? So this model is kind of a simple lens where you can view your website through, and you can see what needs work and what you can do in order to establish a behavior to make sure that people act. And that's why, for example, certain brands can get away with creating a bit of a complex website because the motivation would be high. Like if Nike would redo their website and it's a bit difficult to understand, but it looks really funky, they want to make themselves unique, they want to stand out, they can get away with it because usually the motivation for people is high. Well, for your brand, if you're not very well known, then doing something new, innovative, or funky is going to create a bit of a hard ability, like it's very difficult to do, and the motivation might not be as high as you want it to be, so then it fails. So if you see competitors or if you see industry leaders do certain things that look very funky, neat, and innovative, doesn't mean that it will work for you, because people for you might have a lower motivation, and what you will need to work on is to make it easier for them to buy when they're on your site. If you want help figuring out where you're falling short, if you need to work on motivation, ability, or prompts, or all of them, then be sure to check the description and join our community, where we will show you how you can improve all these three and to see what actually is the case and what is wrong on your website and what you need to do in order to get people on that action line or above. And once you do that, be sure to watch this video in which I show you what the perfect product page looks like.